And we are live here in Dallas, Texas at the Omni SEC Media Day. Second show live from Radio Row. Doesn't get old. Still smiling ear to ear. It is college football time, baby. When we have this day, that means that college football is about to be played, and we're glad to have y'all dialed in. It is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024, the last one on the face of the planet, the biggest Wednesday of the week. We got a lot of things on the docket for you. We got Carson Beck joining the program. Talked to him yesterday. Talked about his maturation process at Georgia. Talked about why he ultimately decided to stay at Georgia. Not just the second time of coming back for another year, but also, if you remember, he's a guy that had to wait his turn. Carson Beck, a throwback. Asked him about that, as well as a number of other things. Excited for y'all to hear that conversation. Florida is in town for SEC Media Days today. A lot of talk is going to be about Billy Napier and his job security. And I've thought about it for a while. It's not say it with your chest season just yet. It's not prediction season just yet. But I still think that with that being said, I feel pretty confident about how I feel about his job security. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Georgia was in town yesterday. I guess they got in town the night before, but they took the podium yesterday. And Kirby Smart voluntarily said, hey, we are handling our discipline for some of these traffic incidents by hitting them where it hurts. They are withholding certain NIL values for some of these guys. So do we like that? Is that a good idea? Is that the future of college football? I think it's a good move, if you're asking me. We'll kind of unpack that together. And to the joy of a lot of people, this also happened yesterday. Horns down, the gesture, not going to be a penalty. That's a good thing for the rest of college football. That's a good thing for SEC fans. And Texas fans, I don't think this gets enough buzz. Texas fans, I promise you, the rational ones don't even actually want it to be a penalty. So we'll give you our thoughts there. But where I want to start here is how many teams from the SEC are going to make the college football playoff? Because that's been a topic of discussion really throughout this week so far, and it'll be a topic of discussion as we move on throughout the season. How many teams get in? We're glad to have y'all here. Make sure you subscribe. We're on Radio Row, baby. We're out here at SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas. That means the season's about to start. Don't want y'all to miss anything. So lock in on the YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button. If you're just finding us ahead of college football season, welcome. It's college football, nothing but college football, and it's every single day. So make sure you're dialed in here. Also, if you're on podcast, shouts to y'all on podcast. Y'all have been crushing it on that platform. We see the numbers just continue to just climb up the ladder. So thank you for that. If you're listening on podcast, just go ahead and subscribe to the feed and review the show, and it just helps us help you. So thank you for that. So how many teams are going to make the dance from the Southeastern Conference? Is it 4? Is it 6? Is it 5? I don't know, but I think that it's interesting to look at Vegas and what they say. They have currently, of the 10 most likely teams to make the college football playoff from an odds perspective, 5 of those are from the Southeastern Conference. Then you go down the ladder even further. You got Tennessee right outside the top 10. You got Missouri right outside the top 10. You got Texas A&M, I believe, within the top 15. Vegas likes the SEC, and for good reason. In the 4-team format, 6 of the 10 national titles were won by the SEC. Now, Jesse Simonton has a great column on on3.com about this very topic, so go check that out. But I think as soon as the college football playoff became a reality that was expanding, as soon as we found out we're going to 12 teams, and even before that, when people were clamoring for an expanded playoff, the thing that a lot of SEC naysayers were shouting about was, good, this is finally going to mean that the SEC is going to get what they've got coming to them. Because I think a lot of SEC naysayers, folks that think the SEC is overrated or it's not all that, or maybe they're just sick of the SEC in general, and I mean, you're entitled to your own opinion. They have long stood on the idea that adding more teams into a playoff format will keep the SEC from being able to just play each other and then find themselves in a smaller playoff format where they have a shorter path to victory. I'm here to tell you, you're not actually getting what you, I think, are hoping for if you're an SEC naysayer. Because the reality is at least a third of this playoff is going to be made up by the SEC. So when the hope was they would have more resistance and have a more limited chance at a national championship, that's not going to happen. In fact, it's going to be exactly the opposite. So I think 4 teams feels like the floor. Like four to me is an absolute layup for how many teams get in the college football playoff from the SEC. Because from where I'm sitting, you'll have the SEC champ. That's obvious. You're also, I don't know how you leave the SEC runner-up out of the college football playoff. Like, go back to last year. Georgia, I've said this for a long time. If they were healthy, if you gave them some time to recover, which they would have had if they were in a 12-team playoff last year after the game in Atlanta, I think they were the best team in college football. I think they would have won the whole darn thing. So take of that as you will. So you have those two absolutely in. And then I think you're going to have some teams that fall in that 11-1, probably more likely 10-2 range that will look the part. Will probably have some quality losses, which is an ugly word, but that's where we are in college football. 5 teams from the SEC getting the dance. That's where I think it gets really, really intriguing. Because who they're being compared to will be teams from the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10. And if you have teams with equal records, I think the SEC is going to have a better resume. But also, like, let's talk about the eye test for a second. Like, we talk about the eye test when it comes time for, like, Selection Sunday, and it's kind of, I mean, people hate it because it's kind of hard to quantify, but, like, the eye test is a real thing, and the SEC is going to pass that with flying colors every single time. If you don't believe me, look at the NFL draft. That is a business that is, from what I understand, almost exclusively, not exclusively, in a large part, has a pretty large emphasis on the eye test. They go to the SEC more than any other conference, so take of that as you will. But let's talk about the path they'll have from the SEC to the college football playoff throughout the course of the regular season. Compare that with some other teams that they could be battling for that maybe last spot in the playoff, or if the SEC is trying to get a 5th team in and they're up against a Big Ten team. More than likely, it's going to be a 10-2 team from the SEC or a 10-2 team from the Big Ten. Again, we're already assuming 2 other 10-2 teams from the SEC get in. So let's talk about that 3rd or 4th 10-2 team. Let's just say it's Tennessee. They're right on the fridge of those top 10 teams. This is just for an example. Let's say it's one of those teams that's, a Tennessee or, let's say an LSU. If they're 10-2, they will have better reference points than I think any other teams will across the country for how they stack up to get into the college football playoff. Like, we hate saying the word good loss or close loss or quality loss, but Tennessee, they play Bama and they play Georgia. Both teams that I would say right now most of the college football public expects to be college football playoff teams. So if Tennessee plays Bama close, plays Georgia close, or plays one of them, heck, let's say they beat one of those teams, that's going to bode well for them on the resume. And Penn State, they should be 11-1, but what if they do go 10-2? What if they do drop a game they're not supposed to? They lose to Ohio State. Compare reference points. Ohio State is the best reference point for a Penn State. Tennessee, you got Bama, you got Georgia. And so if you're stacking up losses, if Tennessee looks better in those games than Penn State does in their one game against Ohio State, I think you give the nod to the 10-2 SEC team. Let's talk about the ACC. I think Miami, as we sit here right now, is thinking college football playoff. I think they're thinking, let's go ahead and win a game in the college football playoff if we're going to be honest about it in Coral Gables, right? Like, that's kind of what this year is about for you. But let's just say they end up going 10-2, and let's say they don't make the ACC championship game for whatever reason. LSU and their reference points, they're going to play Bama. They're going to play Ole Miss, which I think are both probably at this point in time widely thought to be college football playoff teams. Miami, who's their reference point? Florida State? Florida? I'm not saying those are bad reference points. I'm saying they don't stack up as well as what LSU or a Tennessee or other teams across the SEC will have to do. Now, this is not true for every single team across the conference in the SEC, but I think when you look at the total body of work, you're going to look at those schools and who they've had to play and how they stack up, and they will look better than teams in the ACC, the Big Ten, and what have you. So as we sit here right now, I understand that we talk a lot about easy schedules and that being a benefit, and it's okay, they got a path, but I don't know that I would think that's quite the advantage when it comes down to splitting hairs and finding your way for that last spot in that large bid. It's great if you're trying to win a conference title. It's great if you're trying to get to the conference title. But if you find yourself slipping up and not handling business how you're supposed to, and you get into that 10-2 logjam and you're not in the SEC, I think it could ultimately end up hurting you. Again, I'm using Penn State, Tennessee, and LSU as just schools to speak to as an example, but I think overall the sentiment, in large part, painting with the broad brush, rings true. So if I had to say today how many teams I think are going to get into the college football playoff from the SEC, 4 is a layup, but y'all, I would say 5. I genuinely believe 5 teams will get into the college football playoff. Now 6, if they get 6 in, there will be riots across the U.S. in college towns all over this great nation. Like there will be. I'm just telling you right now. 6 would surprise me. 6 would mean a lot of teams in other conferences didn't handle their business how they were supposed to, and the SEC just kind of backdoored their way into 6 teams. 5 to me, though, is probably the number I would hang my hat on right now for the reasons I just said. The resume is going to favor them. The eye test is going to favor them. The reference points for even their losses going to favor them. So, yes, we're in Dallas. Yes, we're at SEC Media Days, but I think 5 teams would be my shot I would call right now for teams from the Southeastern Conference to make the college football playoff. Let me know in the live chat, let me know in the comment section what y'all are thinking about that and where you would stand when it comes to teams from the SEC that could make the dance. Hey, I'm not alone here in Dallas, though. No, we got my man off here to my right. I guess it would be your left if you're watching live on the YouTube channel. We got that man producing the show, Trey Yannity, on the 1s and 2s, man. Trey, what you think right now, man? We got a lot of teams that I think will be in contention for the college football playoff from the SEC. How do you feel about how many teams could make the dance from this conference?
Well, JD, I mean, everything is bigger in Texas, right? We have a bigger playoff, and we have a bigger conference here as well. I think 4 is fair. I think 5 is more realistic, though, and I don't think 6. 6 is it's just not going to happen. I mean, half of the college football playoff in one conference, maybe that would be deserving, but that's not going to happen. I think 4 is ultimately what you're going to see. The way that things line up with this championship game now in the SEC could determine a lot. Does a team get penalized because they made their conference championship game? Ultimately, I mean, the 2 teams that you added to this conference are 2 teams that are probably going to have, say, in the top 5 highest odds to make that. So while you expand the conference and obviously we have an expanded playoff, I don't think that, schools at the bottom necessarily have a better chance.
Sure.
But I think that overall the quantity is going to match, just the strength of what we see right now.
And it's going to ruffle some feathers. Like when you see a Big 12 runner-up left out of the dance for a 10-2 SEC team that didn't even play for the SEC championship, like we're going to have some real problems. Like this is going to be great for traffic overall for everyone in the college football public because it'll be controversy and all that. But it's gonna take some acclimation, and I wonder just a little bit if that's not a little bit of the ingredient you throw into the chemistry set that is conference realignment. And if folks are saying, okay, if we want to compete for national championships, we have to be in either the SEC or the Big Ten. I think that's not unrealistic to say at all.
I think it's not unrealistic, but I think you're going to see the committee look out for those schools that are thinking that way, right? I mean, the committee, and I think college football public in general, they don't want to see it stacked into 2 conferences. At some point, maybe that is the case, and the quantity of schools is just so big where it's pretty much everybody in those 2 conferences, and it's not really a big deal. But for this short term, at least, I think you want the nation to be spread out a little bit. You want the Big 12 to be good. You want the ACC to kind of revive themselves. Not to say that they've completely gone away at this point, but you want Florida State and Clemson to stay in the ACC, I think, if you're the committee. And I think that you'll see them make sure that those schools are taken care of this year. I mean, last year, the SEC had 4 schools that won the national championship. The committee didn't necessarily take care of those schools. Alabama obviously made the playoff. They weren't even in the top 6 for every single poll until then. So I think they'll look out for it, but ultimately they're going to try to get it right again this year. And I think we're going to see a lot of, SEC representation, obviously.
A lot of retraining the brain going into conference title weekend, without a doubt. Trey Yannity making it happen here on the 1s and 2s. Going to be checking in with him throughout the show, getting his take on things. Again, if you haven't liked the video, would appreciate you doing so. Helps us help you and get the show to more people, so thank you for that. We got Florida in town today. Florida Gators making their rounds at SEC Media Days, and we prefaced the show with this, but there's going to be a lot of folks now that are murmuring, saying, well, is he going to be there long term? Is Billy Napier really the guy at Florida? And those murmurs have already been rumbling for a while now. I think we'll start to see them get a little bit more volume. But I want to tell you my thoughts on this whole Billy Napier situation and his job security at Florida. And I'm in the minority here, and I'm totally fine with that. I think Billy Napier will be the head coach at Florida beyond just this season. I think we'll come back to SEC Media Days next year in Atlanta, and we'll say, yep, Billy Napier, head coach at Florida. How you doing? And I feel that way for a couple of reasons. The first is the product on the field. Like, that's what this all comes down to, right? Like, if you're not winning football games, then this point doesn't matter at all. Like my whole prediction here, my whole thought around him being the head coach at Florida past this season is built on the thought that I think they're going to be a bowl game team. Not just a bowl game team. I think they will look good in the games they need to look good in. I think the eye test, they will pass it. They will be competitive against the teams that have to be competitive against the Miamis, the Florida States, and things of that nature. So that's the first part of this. The big reason why I feel that way is you look at the schedule, man. I don't see a game outside of Georgia and Texas. Let that sink in for a second. They have to play both Georgia and Texas. I move on. Outside of Georgia and Texas, I don't see a game with Florida where I say, yeah, man, they have no chance of winning. I'm not telling you they'd be favored, but I don't see many games on the schedule, again, outside of playing against Georgia and at Texas, that they're going to be double-digit underdogs to. The Tennessee game, yeah, Tennessee, I think they're going to be really good this year. They're playing a freshman quarterback. I think Nico's a stud. They get him in October, so how far along is Nico at that point remains to be seen. Miami, going to be really good. They get him first game of the year in the Swamp. We all understand now, playing in the Swamp is very different than playing anywhere else in college football. You kind of got to throw a little bit of a who knows what's going to happen variable into that thing. LSU, same deal. You play them in the Swamp. Also, has LSU fixed their issues on defense? I don't know. I don't think LSU fans even know until we get to see them play. Ole Miss, they probably are in that conversation for being a college football playoff team. They get them in the Swamp. Same thing. Florida State, I think Florida State's going to be great. However, they bring back not that much from last year's squad. DJU, who is he? I like DJU, but they are 83rd in returning production in all of college football. What do they look like? So I think the product in itself will warrant keeping Billy Napier for another season, but let's look at this a little bit further. I think that Florida will have some pieces to score on people. Now, defense has got to hold up their end of the bargain. They're better on that side of the football as well. The offensive line is a massive hinge point. But looking at the skill positions, what do we always say? Hey, you got a quarterback, you got a chance. Florida has a quarterback. Is Graham Mertz going to win the Heisman? I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think he's pretty good. I think he's good enough to get it done for you in the games that you need to have something serviceable at quarterback. The weapons they got for him. Elijah Badger, Shamir DK from Wisconsin, a guy who Graham Mertz has a lot of chemistry with, to go with who I think, I've said this many times, one of the best playmakers in college football in Trey Wilson. Like, they're going to have some pieces. Montrell Johnson, they're going to have a presence on the ground. So if the name of the game for Florida is keeping pace, I'm not saying they're going to score 40 a game, but I think they have the ingredients to do that in a lot of these key games and a lot of these key spots, especially at home. Now, logically, does it really make sense to move on from Billy Napier after this season if you don't see something that's overwhelmingly encouraging, like 8-4? Like let's say for example, in this situation, Florida goes 6-6. With what Billy Napier inherited, and with the schedule they have, and with the current climate of college football and the current climate of the SEC, rather, do you know without a shadow of a doubt he's not the guy for you? Because I think it's been well documented. The job that he took over out there in Gainesville was not a ready-made situation. Okay, go out on the field and win some ball games. Now, the cupboard wasn't bare. You still had Anthony Richardson. You still had some key pieces on defense, but having key pieces and having a roster to go compete in the SEC are two very, very different things. And so when I look at Billy Napier and his time at Florida, I think now in year 3, yes, it's a show-me-something year, but then you also have to look at the fact of how difficult that schedule is. It is also, I think, 6-6 has to be graded on a curve. And when I say graded on a curve, all the folks in our college audience know what I'm talking about. Like, you and I have walked into a fair amount of our classes and walked into that final and just been like, man, it's gonna be a long summer. It's gonna be a long summer because I don't have to study to come back to this class because I'm probably gonna fail. Right now, I got a D in the class. However, you take the final, walk out of the final, you don't feel any better because you felt like you flunked the final. You check your website for wherever you get your grades at, and you say, oh, actually, they curved that final. They curved the grade that would have been a D- all the way up to a C+. Let's go. I think you have to use that same logic if you're a Florida fan for Billy Napier in the schedule. Because 6-6 against this schedule with the ridiculous November that they have on deck here, that's good enough to be 8-4, dare I say 9-3 in some other conferences. Now, I'm not making excuses or carrying water. I'm just telling you the facts. If they go 6-6 with this schedule, with Georgia, with Texas, with the game against Florida State to finish the season, you start with Miami. Like, there is a lot of meat on this schedule that is going to be difficult to digest if you're a Florida fan. All right? Ole Miss is a college football playoff team. Like, I look at the schedule, man, I could see very easily 6 to 7 college football playoff teams on the docket for Florida. And so, again, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I do think you have to use a little bit of a different lens when you grade Billy Napier this season because of how difficult that schedule is. So I think the response you get from Florida fans, though, is, okay, well, who cares? Who cares? Like, we can be more than fine and still find a way to be good if we are able to hire the right guy. We can hit the reset button and hire the right guy. It's no problem for us. No problem. We can find the right guy, use the portal, we'll be good. Are we sure we want to go that route? Are we sure we want to hit the reset button on this roster? Because I don't have any intel here as to what would happen with who would leave, who would stay, and all that. But I do think if we're using common sense here, everybody on this roster has committed to playing for Billy Napier. And in the day and age of player mobility, you understand now, if you change the person these guys committed to, they might be looking somewhere else. DJ Lagway was a massive get for them in that previous cycle. Do you really want to risk losing him as well as some other talent you have within that roster? Just my own 2 cents. You would hit the reset on this roster, I believe, and I think also you would hit the reset and look to the next season and say, okay, what do we really expect going forward? Do you really want to hit the reset and say we're building again for another year, 2 years? I don't think so. I don't think anybody really wants to do that. So that's the product, the logic. The last piece of this here, when I look at Billy Napier and why I think he's going to be okay long-term, I think the intel is interesting when you talk to people close to Florida. When coaches are on the hot seat or feeling pressure or the end is near, for lack of a less morbid phrase, there are signs. Like, you hear things around how the coach is operating. You hear things around how the team is responding to the coach. Like, there's a lot of things that just you, quite frankly, as much as you want to, you can't keep from getting out internally within that locker room and from that coaching staff. Now, people are saying things about Florida, and that's nothing new, but like, we're not seeing the signs that we would see that would be concerning. We're not hearing the things that we would hear that would be concerning. All that's to say is, from what I understand, Billy Napier isn't operating like a coach that feels the pressure of him being on the hot seat. From what I understand, he's a coach that is operating in a way to where he believes he will have passed this year. And if Billy Napier believes that, I mean, if anybody's going to know they're on the hot seat, you would think it would be the guy that's on the hot seat. So from an intel perspective, from a logic perspective, you don't want to hit the reset for another 2 years from a product of what they have that they, I think, will be this season, winning 6+ ball games with that ridiculous schedule, grading on a curve. I think Florida will keep Billy Napier throughout this season, moving on to next season. So, again, let me know how y'all feel about that, but that's my 2 cents. Trey, we didn't talk about this before the show, so we're getting this just live in real time, your thoughts on this. How do you feel about Billy Napier and the idea of him potentially having his job past just this season?
Well, I mean, for me, it comes down to would I play for Billy Napier? JD, would you play for Billy Napier? If he was recruiting you and Texas was in the mix,
sure,
and Ole Miss was in the mix and some of these other schools, would you play for Billy Napier? Because as far as wins and losses go this season, I'm with you. I think the schedule is, relatively doable, and there's opportunity with it as well, of course. But if you look to the future, and recruiting is the thing that he can do, can he, sustain that? Is that really the reason you're going to keep this guy around? Would you play for Billy Napier?
If I can get 7 wins this year, and 7 is not like a layup by any stretch of the imagination. I think Vegas has Florida right around 4.5 wins preseason. If I can get to 7 wins, to me that says, okay, against that schedule, and based on what we've done previously, there is cause for optimism. There is a trajectory here for Florida where the arrow is pointing up. And if I can see that as a recruit, I feel good enough about Florida to go forward. Now, here's the question. Getting 7 wins, you fast forward the tape, you don't find out what you have until the end of November, until the season's over. So is that too late in the process to where that hurts high school recruiting efforts? I don't know the answer to that. But that, for me, would be a reason why I would feel better about Florida. Maybe that helps in the portal, though.
Well, and I think we're looking at it as, okay, they're going to play 12 games, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
Will they? Or do we get to week number 5 or 6 and they know? I guess what is that point in the season to where you say, okay, it's time to move on, or we're going to stick it out and we're going to evaluate the body work. You play Miami to start the year. They're not favored to win that game, on the books. So let's say you do lose that game, Texas A&M week 3. at Mississippi State, UCF, Tennessee. I think we could know, halfway through the season who the interim is for the Florida Gators. I don't know, JD. I think that 7-5 would work. Do they get the opportunity to even do that?
The crucial games I'm looking at here, Trey, you bring up a great point. They get UCF at the crib and then go to Tennessee. If they go 0-2 in that stretch, my gut would say they probably have lost more games before that. I don't think you can lose to the new kid on the block in UCF and then lose to Tennessee with a freshman quarterback. Like that can't happen. That can't happen. Now, will it happen? We'll see. But that would be the point where I'm like, oh, boy, all right, everybody hang on tight. We could have issues here.
I think that's, the danger zone. But then you play Kentucky the next week and then at Georgia, home against Georgia, and then at Texas. So I think that 5-game stretch even, after you get done with Tennessee is really where you find out. I to be honest, and, Nick De La Torre, our colleague, who it's been awesome to get to see not just him, but so many people within our network this week and, throughout what we do. But he made a good point. Billy's confident right now. This is a guy that, like you said, doesn't necessarily think he's on the hot seat. So you look at the schedule, and I don't necessarily think that their staff is ready to turn things over just yet. But I think if I had to say, that confidence is, maybe going to run out pretty early in the season. I just don't. And with the president that we know, JD, I mean, look at what they did with the last regime. That was a move that they might have made too quickly there. If you're a Florida fan. So I just don't necessarily think we get to see the back half of the schedule for Billy Napier.
We're going to find out here soon. In a matter of weeks. This is so fun. We're actually talking about the college football season. It's no more, hey, spring football was great. It's more of, man, week 1, Miami coming to the crib. It's going to be awesome. Cannot wait for it. So one of the beautiful things about being here at Media Days, get to interact with a lot of our colleagues. And also, obviously, we get to talk to a lot of these players that are actually going to be playing the games on Saturdays. And if you've watched this show for any length of time, we have bought every single ounce of stock that we can find in Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. So we sat down with him yesterday at this very table, talked about his journey at Georgia, talked about his decision to stay at Georgia for, honestly, not just this past season, but even previously when he wasn't the guy at Georgia and probably could have gone somewhere else and transferred and played right away. Here's our conversation with Georgia QB1 Carson Beck. Here at SEC Media Days with Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. Carson, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So first question for you. How often are we doing an oil change on the Lambo truck? How frequent is that?
I think it's every 7,500 miles.
That's not bad.
I know, it's not bad. I haven't had to get an oil change.
That's not bad at all, man. Coming into this year, obviously a lot of excitement around Georgia, and you going into your second year. When did you feel like last year you kind of got comfortable being the guy?
Yeah, I think the Auburn game was a very pivotal moment for me, and I think a lot of people go to that game. Obviously, it was a very difficult environment against a good team. I mean, they brought their A game that game, and we knew they would. And then, obviously, we had some turnovers in there. But with that, we had adversity. We showed composure. And I think for me, I grew a lot throughout that game because I realized, I got to go and we'll go. If I can perform, we're going to get this thing done. And I kind of put that on myself. And throughout the rest of the season, I always went back to that game and instilled confidence in me the rest of the year.
Do you feel like the offseason is different for you this year? Obviously, knowing, hey, I'm the guy going into the season. We're building around me in some sense. Does that change your approach at all to this upcoming year?
Yeah, I think it changes it a little bit. I think, obviously, the main thing is the main thing, and the things that I always work on and focus on are always going to be there. But I think last year coming into the season, I was much more internally focused because I was competing for the job. I had to look at what I was doing most of the time and try to improve in every single which way. But I think now that I have a season under my belt, those things are still very prevalent. But I think my focus has become more outwardly focused on my teammates and how can I be the best player to make the people around me better.
Does the hunger change at all after last year? Because, I sat here on our show and I was like, Georgia is the best team in college football, and they didn't win the national championship. Is there a different level of energy for y'all coming into this year?
No, I think each year the energy remains the same regardless of what happened the last year because it's a new team. Every year it's a new team. There's new players. There's new faces. Obviously, you're going to have those same guys that are coming back that have produced in the past, that did produce last year. But I think that energy is always constant, and Coach Smart does such a good job at, year to year, game to game, at keeping it super simple and just one thing at a time.
Last question for you, man. Appreciate all your time. You've chosen to stay at Georgia a couple of times, from waiting your turn to then this past year deciding to come back for another year before going pro. What is it about you being able to kind of block out the instant gratification and staying at Georgia and kind of your path overall?
Yeah, obviously in a world where everybody is so instant gratification focused, we have our phones that are so fast and you can get information in one click. Everybody wants everything right now. So for me, honestly, just realizing that being patient and, staying in the moment and just appreciating the journey rather than being accolade driven, just having fun and enjoying being where your feet are and staying grounded and enjoying that part of it really made the journey easier for me. Not that it was ever easy. There was times where it was very difficult, but obviously getting to like this now and being where I am at this moment, it's all been able to pay off, which, I'm super proud.
The freshest man at SEC Media Days, Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. Appreciate all your time, man. Best of luck.
Thank you.
I wouldn't make any money because I think he's the favorite in Vegas, but feel pretty good about making a pick for him. I think also there is a lot of buzz right now across SEC Media Days as to who's the best quarterback in the conference. I love Jackson Dart. We sat down with Jackson Dart as well, actually, the other day, and we'll show you that conversation. If not tomorrow, at some point in the coming weeks. I think Garrett Nussmeier's awesome. I love Quinn Ewers. If I have one drive and if they don't score, I'm in trouble. If I have one drive to save my life, one drive for the fate of the universe, I'm taking I'm taking Carson Beck. Efficient, poised, second year as the guy, but been in that system for a long time. I mean, I think he's about to explode, and they got him some more weapons too. So Carson Beck, appreciate him making some time. Good pick his brain a little bit here at SEC Media Days. Also looking fresh. I don't know if y'all could see. He had like a iced out, I don't even want to guess at what kind of watch it was. Maybe Rolex. Feels like Rolex is maybe the term.
Rolex or Rolex adjacent, yeah.
It was nice, though. Yeah, it was very, very nice. NIL seems to be taking care of our guy out there at Georgia. All right, Oklahoma. They're new to the conference. They were here yesterday. And there's a lot of discussion about what they're going to be in the SEC. Because the entry point for them into this conference is very, very different than Texas. Texas, they won the Big 12 last year. Texas made the college football playoff. But don't forget now, a lot of new faces on that roster that played against Texas last year. But Oklahoma beat Texas a season ago. Food for thought. What is going to be the key variables for them for success in the Southeastern Conference? What are the big questions for the Sooners? I think the number one question we all got to ask right now is, can they protect Jackson Arnold? Because you bring in pretty much a whole new offensive line. Now, I love Bill Bedenbaugh. I think he's going to be able to get the most out of whatever unit they have out there. I trust him. But at the same time, if you can't protect Jackson Arnold in the Big 12, that's one thing. In the SEC, that's a completely other beast. Because in the SEC, we've seen it now. One, it's a line of scrimmage conference. Two, the guys that are coming off the edge out there, from a James Pierce to a Harold Perkins to, insert whatever player you want there that's a freak show off the edge, makes your life a little bit difficult. So if Jackson Arnold struggles early on in the year, make sure we evaluate the context for him. Make sure we're assessing what he's getting on that offensive line and how much time he has to deliver the football. Because if they can protect Jackson Arnold, if they do give him a chance to read the defense and feel comfortable and confident back there in the pocket, we've said it a lot. They have, I believe, one of the most slept-on wide receiver rooms in not just the SEC, and all of America. I'll say it again. Jaleel Farouk, Deion Burks was handing out T-shirts and juice boxes after the spring game as he put on a clinic. I love Nick Anderson. I love Andrew Anthony when he's healthy. So all of those pieces, I think, make it very difficult as a defense to give the proper attention to all those weapons. Because I'm telling you right now, I don't think you're going to feel good about your chances single covering Deion Burks. I don't. If you do that, there will be a lot of Oklahoma's fight song being played. The other thing that has to happen for the defense to probably respect Jackson Arnold a little bit more as well, outside of just having proper protection, what would help the offensive line even further is if they're able to have success running the football. And the thing that I'm watching for Oklahoma, can they run the football effectively in zone run schemes? Now, not to get to X's and O's in this segment with you, but zone run schemes make the offensive line's job a touch easier. O-line's job is never easy, but it's a touch easier in the zone run scheme because you're blocking an area as opposed to a man. And so think about it this way. If I have a zone run called, I just have to make sure that I get a hat on a hat. I don't have to pancake my guy for us to have success and have a big-time run. And the backfield that Oklahoma has a lot of speed and explosion to where if you give me a little bit of daylight, and I'm Gavin Sawchuk, like I'm getting north and south pretty quickly here, and I'm going to be able to pick up some yards. If they have success running the football, again, it mellows out the defense. You can't come off the edge quite as authoritatively if you're an opposing SEC defense because you're not sure if that zone run is going to go right under you. You'll have problems. So just keeping a defense honest is going to be massive for protecting Jackson Arnold. The offensive line is crucial. The run game is crucial because if they can do that, get the ball to playmakers and let Jackson Arnold develop and progress and be comfortable as a 5-star kind of quarterback, which we all saw him be at the high school level, there could be some really good things that happen for the Sooners in 2024. I'll leave it at that. Now, the thing that nobody's questioning in 2024 for Oklahoma is the personnel they have on defense. Now, personnel and product are different things, but Oklahoma brings back north of 70% production from last year's squad that allowed right around 24 points a game. I had talked to somebody yesterday at SEC Media Days. We were kind of just buzzing around the floor here, and he made a great point that we agree with wholeheartedly is that Brent Venables did not get a football lobotomy coming from Clemson to Oklahoma. We echoed that sentiment last year when they struggled defensively. We reinforced that sentiment this past season when they had success defensively, and the fact they have so much coming back production-wise from last year's unit and their leadership in Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman means the continuity and the attitude is not just staying the same. It'll be improved upon because of all those guys understanding what this defense is all about, both schematically and attitude-wise. And when you have guys that are able to not just do the 100-level coursework, but the 200-level coursework for this defense, that's when you get really dangerous. That's when you can be a little bit more complex in your scheme. That's when you can put a little bit more into the game plan because you're not having to continue to teach the layups. You can get a little bit more creative and really put offenses on their heels. So another thing that'll support Oklahoma in that regard is the offense may not have to score 40 a game for you to have success. There might be some rock fights you get into because of how good I think this defense is going to be. You can row a boat and have success. You can't move anywhere in the water if you're taking on water. And I think that's Oklahoma in 2024. If they had problems on defense, I would be very, very skeptical of Oklahoma going into this season. I don't think that's going to be the case. Just because you don't have an offense that's going to score as many as, maybe you'd like them to game in and game out early on at least, I think Oklahoma will still be in position to be able to compete in a lot of these football games. Now, here's the big question I have, and I think a lot of the media has as well going into 2024 and just all of the college football public period. What is going to be the response for Oklahoma to the week in and week out grind of the SEC? Because I have no shade to throw at the Big 12. I love the Big 12. I think it'll be one of the most exciting conferences in college football this upcoming season. But the week in and week out grind is very different in the SEC. Like last season, you play Texas, you got to be able to, still have a solid output the next week, but you're not playing another version of Texas the week after. This upcoming season, you play Tennessee, which will be a highly emotional game. It'll be Josh Heupel's return to Norman. It'll be a pretty good matchup from a roster talent perspective, I believe. But then you go to Auburn and play in Jordan-Hare, which is a place that Jackson Arnold said that Carson Beck told him it's cursed. And judging on what's happened there just in the history of that stadium, I don't think he's that far off. There's no letdown available there. You play Alabama. Guess what you get after that? You go to Baton Rouge to play LSU. Week in and week out, it's going to be a grind. And that's one thing physically on your body, which is the obvious part, but also emotionally. Competitively, can you be as close to your best every single week? And that's the task that all college football teams have in front of them when they go into the season. But especially for Oklahoma, with this roster and this schedule, and quite frankly, being new to the SEC, it's tough to prepare for it. It's tough to really be able to execute until you're actually in the trenches. So it's a marathon. It's a marathon with Brent Venables. It's a marathon in the SEC. And then going back to what I said at the top of the segment, the entry point matters for Oklahoma and how we assess them. Because if they struggle their first year in the SEC, and struggling, I think, would look somewhere like 7-5 based on what Vegas says about them. If they struggle and have that kind of a season, a lot of people will be very quick to say, told you, it's the SEC. Told you, they can't match up to that. Told you, it's just a different beast. Is it that? Or is it that they have a new starting quarterback? Or is it that they have a brand new offensive line? I would be very, very careful for all of us to not fall back into the punchline culture we fell into Brent Venables' first year at Oklahoma. It wasn't that he's a bad coach. It was that he was trying to install his system and get his personnel on defense. Same deal with this upcoming season. If they struggle, and I'm not calling my shot right now, we'll do that a little bit next week. If they struggle their first year in the SEC, I would be slow to say Brent Venables is a bad coach, doesn't have what it takes in the SEC. Maybe, just maybe, it's going to take a second. They're not entering into the SEC coming off a college football playoff berth. They have a good roster. They'll be competitive. But if they can protect Jackson Arnold, and if they can develop that competitive excellence to week in and week out, have the stamina to be their very best, going from games against Alabama and going to LSU, going from Texas and then South Carolina and then at Ole Miss, if they can have that stamina, then there'll be a problem. So Oklahoma first year in the SEC will be a lot of fun. I can't wait to watch it. We're talking about it right now at SEC Media Days. Trey, do you have any take on Oklahoma their first year in the dance, or in the dance rather? I guess it is the big dance, the first year in the conference that is the Southeastern Conference?
Well, JD, I mean, this is a team that appeared like an SEC team before they're in the SEC. So yeah. I don't think that this is going to be as much of a culture shock for them as it would so many other teams in America. But I think the question for them and pretty much every other team in the SEC is how well can you protect your quarterback? You said it at the top of the segment here, and the defense is going to be really important, like you noted. But I think how well do you protect your young, talented, unexperienced quarterback? That's going to determine how well your season goes, in my opinion. There's a lot, obviously, a lot of factors around joining a conference like this. And, in a year where there's more playoff teams and, you look at every schedule, Oklahoma's schedule, we had Florida's schedule up earlier. We're going to have Texas' schedule up later in the show. There's a stretch on every single team's schedule where you go, oh my God, how are they going to win, more than one out of those 5 games? And Oklahoma has a stretch like that as well, of course. But I think this is an extremely talented Oklahoma team. It's young talent. And, we sat down with Billy Bowman yesterday. They're fired up. They feel like they're kind of an underdog, like so many teams do in this conference with just how many, big name schools there are and how much talent there is. But I think coming into this year, protect Jackson Arnold, and you're going to win a lot of football games.
I think persona of leadership translates to persona of your football team. And the persona of Brent Venables, if I had to pick one word, fiery. And that was, I think, the vibe that we all got when we heard Billy Bowman, when we heard Danny Stutzman. I mean, I think even Jackson Arnold probably has a quiet fire about him. And so that edge, that feistiness, again, I don't know what they're going to look like in 2024. We'll obviously give a prediction a little bit later in next week and throughout the next couple, I guess, 4 weeks as we get into, prediction season, say it with your chess season. But I think Oklahoma, they got a path now to be dangerous. Got a path.
No doubt about it. And JD, I know I don't want to put you on the spot, but we got your predictions coming next week. I'm excited to see them across all our platforms because that was, a big point of last summer that really closed it out the right way. So excited for it. Also, while we're at it too, tonight on our Recruits channel, on the other side there, DJ Pickett, a 5-star plus. Oklahoma's maybe not in the mix here, but some of the biggest schools in the country. So be sure to tune in 6 p.m. Central Time on our Recruits channel there.
On the On 3 Recruits channel, baby.
Recruits, DJ Pickett making his big announcement.
On 3 Recruits, also typically your home turf. So we appreciate the good folks over there letting us steal you for this road trip to Alabama.
We're a family. We're a big community at On 3. So yes, On 3 Recruits. But excited to be here with you, JD and Andy and everybody else. And appreciative of Nick and River and Jackson Audette, our fine producers, Josh Newberg, making it all happen back in Nashville for us there as well.
Everyone hold down the fort, man.
Yeah.
Holding down the fort.
Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah, make sure you tune into that tonight. DJ Pickett announcing where he is headed to school. Don't want to miss it. So dial into that. Now, speaking of new entries into the SEC, Trey, a lot of people been wondering what Texas is going to be. And I think those same people are also wondering, is the horns down gesture going to be a penalty in the SEC like it was in the Big 12? We got some clarity on that. I believe it was yesterday where the SEC basically said, hey, horns down, go for it. Knock yourself out. Not going to be a penalty. And my first thought on this, when it became clear this was not going to be a penalty, was good. Good. College football is intense. There's a couple of parts of the sport from a fan base level that are a a little bit irreverent. And to be honest now, college football outside of the SEC, like I played in the most like, I'll be honest, I played in a league where you have a lot of individuals that will not go play professional football and a lot of guys that will end up on Wall Street, God bless them, a lot of guys that come from affluent backgrounds. And the trash talk that went on in that league would make horns down look like a thumbs up. And so my point in saying all that is if having your hand gesture turned upside down actually bothers you, I believe Billy Bowman said the same thing. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you need to get into some other sport or some other line of work, because if that's actually something that frustrates you, you are baby lotion soft. And so the SEC home turfers, they were quick to say, hey, you're not in the Big 12 anymore. Nobody's kissing that burnt orange ring. Nobody is saying Texas this, Texas that. Oh, we're so worried about the big bad logo that Texas is. Not that the Big 12 was, but that was the narrative for Texas going into the SEC. You're not in the Big 12 anymore. That was the SEC home turfers' sentiment that they all were rallying behind when this became final. I'm here to tell you, Texas fans, all the rational ones, the ones that have their head on straight, which I would say is probably the majority of the fan base, they're also saying, good, we didn't want the horns down gesture to be a penalty. We didn't want y'all to give us some kind of special treatment going into this new conference. The comp for me was a lot like when you are about to get into a fight at your elementary school or your middle school or whatever, younger years you're in, and your parents find out about it. And before you get the chance to be in that skirmish, they show up at the school and pull you out, or they show up at the school and tell on the other kid or whatever, and you're like, you're embarrassing me. I can handle this. Don't go to bat for me. Let me do this. It actually makes me look more soft, makes me look worse when you try to go to bat for me. There's some things you just got to handle yourself. And so for the SEC to say, you know what, horns down, knock yourself out, I understand. The SEC fans, I think the college football public, all of us that are indifferent on how Texas football does going forward, they're saying good. But Texas fans also, I promise you, they're saying, thank the Lord. Thank goodness this is not something that we have to continue to defend. Because I think also a lot of Texas fans would probably tell you, we don't really care, but also we kind of revel in it a little bit that we're on your mind that way. Now, that again, I think that's probably more case by case for Texas fans, but I have heard different people say that. Texas fans, SEC fans, college football fans, horns down, let it fly. Because if that bothers you again, we probably got to have some more serious conversations as to what sport maybe is best for you, and it's not college football. Trey, what do you think about that, man? Horns down, are you – I mean, so I don't want to put you on the spot here, but Texas, do you feel pretty good about them in the national picture? Do you have any take on this when it comes to the horns down situation? Did it make you feel some kind of way with your SEC background?
Well, I mean, it's a hand gesture, JD, like you said, and I am curious, were you a trash talker in your days at Cornell?
I was more of a 7-on-7. I would talk some trash because you don't have a helmet on. You can kind of have some more like face-to-face, and the game moves a little bit slower. Like in the 11-on-11 padded game, like you're looking to the sideline or you're getting in the huddle. Like there's not quite as much time to talk smack back and forth. Also, the mouthpiece is a big a governor on how much trash you can talk. I wore the binky, so like it was hard. You got to take it out and you got to like say what you want to say. So 7-on-7 with no mouthpiece, I was big on that, but I was never like pegged as like the trash talk guy, if that makes sense.
You strike me as somebody that not shocking there. I think that this is something that I'm shocked we were even talking about. Mm-hmm. Obviously, in the past, there were some complaints. Mac Brown, when he was at Texas, wasn't too fond of people making that gesture. But Billy Bowman, who we sat down with, check that interview out on our On3 page as well. He can put up a peace sign when he's running back a pick six or a horn. It's a hand sign.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? And there's really not that many. We were going through it yesterday. You got the Gator chomp, Aggie thumbs up. TCU has their thing, but there's really not that many hand signals that you can turn upside down or, do something derogatory with. So, if it is possible and they are doing it, it's like Mike Krzyzewski said, it means something if other fans are storming the court, if other teams are, taking your hand signal and turning it upside down, it means you're accomplishing something pretty great. So take it as a sign of respect, Texas. I don't think the players really cared too much about it. I don't know if their fans did or not. Let us know, I guess, in the comments if if it rubs you wrong if you're a Texas fan and you see people doing it. But this is part of the passion of the game, JD. What are we supposed to tell fans to start whispering?
I don't think any other, to your point of all those hand signs, I don't think any other upside down hand gesture, to my knowledge, was a penalty.
Well, in the Gator Chomp, people just do it.
You just do the Gator Chomp in a mocking fashion, and we're all like, all right, if you got it like that, if you are winning the ball game, you have a reason to do that in a derogatory sense, like, more power to you. Like, I never saw the thumbs down for A&M be a thing. I never saw the upside down V for victory for USC be a thing. And so for Texas fans, they're probably like, okay, good. Like, thank goodness. And I think us as college football fans were like, yeah, common sense won out today. That's a good thing.
Yeah, which the thumbs down would be maybe the easiest one to do for Texas A&M.
Yeah, right.
Never seen that. Like you said there, great Vandy fans. Our guy William's story at our office as well. There, maybe don't see people turning a star sideways. So
you don't see it.
Texas is doing something right to even be having this discussion.
I suppose so. Well, one more segment to get to here for us. Appreciate everybody dialed in live again. If you're watching live on the air, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are back on the air tomorrow, same time, same place, Radio Row, our last live show to push through the tape here as we finish up our work in Dallas, Texas. We'll be back in the studio next week with Say It With Your Chest prediction season, whatever you want to call it. We'll be making our picks for the conference championships, for the college football playoff, for the national championship, heck, maybe even some postseason individual awards. We'll call our shot there. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Something very interesting that made its way around Radio Row and honestly the Twitter sphere was how Georgia is handling their punishment for traffic-related incidents. Pete Nakos reports from On3 that 6 figures worth of NIL payments were withheld from Georgia players involved in traffic-related incidents. Now, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has a report that says players or other members of Georgia football have been charged with either DUI, reckless driving, or speeding 24 times in the last 18 months. Translation, we got a problem. And everybody is wondering, how is Georgia going to handle it? Are they kicking them off the team? Are they going to make them do extra workouts? Are they suspending them? And it sounds like they're going to withhold NIL funding, or NIL dollars, essentially, to players that are having these incidents. Now, I would also say this, too, and this is, again, from Kirby Smart yesterday. I believe he voluntarily shared this at the podium when he got on the mic at SEC Media Days yesterday. He said, this is outside of my jurisdiction. This is something the collective is handling. And also, he said, this is not something that's new. This is something we've done for a while now when it comes to how we punish players, more or less. Now, also, I believe it was reported that Kirby Smart and the collective have had conversations with this whole thing happening. So Kirby Smart in some way is involved, but he's not having the actual levying of the penalty when these things come out. But for me, I was like, this is a good idea. One, I'd be surprised if other schools aren't already doing this. Two, I'd be even more surprised if we don't see more of this going forward. And the big thought I have around this is, like, if we have professional problems, players making a lot of money, players able to buy fast cars with that money, players then having the opportunity to do poor things with that car, then we got to go to pro solutions. And what happens in the NFL when you make a poor decision with your car or whatever? You get fined. Now, to be clear, the verbiage around this is important. Georgia players are being withheld their NIL dollars as opposed to being fined their NIL dollars. Fining apparently has more to do with them being an actual employee. But the point stands. The issue in college football, and the issue for Georgia right now, is a professional issue. It's an issue with what you do outside of the team. And yeah, you can have a tough workout on you. You can be made to run extra laps, or made to do extra gassers, or made to have extra difficult punishment lifts. And I'm sure that Georgia actually, just if I had to guess, probably does something of that variety as well, in addition to withholding NIL dollars. But like, you finish up a workout, your punishment's done. Like, after you go in at that early morning on Friday and you have to go pay the Pied Piper for making a poor decision a couple nights before, whatever it was, like, at that point, the punishment's finished. And you'll be sore, but you'll move on. Next week will come. Hopefully you've learned from your poor decision and you're able to move forward. But when you get hit in the wallet, that sticks with you for a while. That changes things. I don't know the exact amounts, but 6 figures worth of NIL payments being withheld from Georgia players doesn't sound like chump change. Sounds like enough to make a difference, hopefully enough to make a difference in your decision-making going forward if you're a Georgia player or anyone else in college football that's utilizing this same kind of discipline. So again, pro problems, guys having a lot of money to buy fast cars and then drive them in, quite frankly, illegal fashion. Pro solutions. In the NFL, you get fined. In the NFL, you also, in a lot of situations, will be suspended. And we'll see what Georgia does on that front if this issue persists even further. Wouldn't surprise me if they were to take action of that variety as well. But overall, this is a good thing for college football. This is a good thing for Georgia. And also, I love that this is out now in the public. Because now that it's out, teams that weren't doing this before now probably feel some freedom to make a decision like this with their future discipline for their players. Because if Georgia, the team that has won 2 of the last 3 national titles, is okay with withholding NIL payments to players as an act of discipline, who's to say another team can't do that? Who's to say a team that hasn't achieved a level like Georgia can't do that? If Georgia's disciplining their players that way, must be something that's probably a good idea. Must be something that their winning culture is okay with putting into place. So all that's to say, I love this from Georgia. I think it's good for college football. I think it's good for Georgia, hopefully long-term, and hoping they're able to have some better decision-making there behind the wheel for the guys in that locker room and for that program. Trey, you have any thoughts on this? Did you see that report that came out? I mean, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was something that will hopefully be commonplace in college football. Workouts are great. You can do a tough workout, but like when you take away some dollars out of my bank account, that changes my week, if not the next few months.
This is just, I mean, this is great news on a lot of different levels. If you're somebody that loves safety, responsibility, people doing the right thing, this is obviously a very good thing for that because there's more accountability here as well. But if you're a Georgia fan, if you're a Georgia football fan, I think this, in a weird way, and not to spin it too crazily down the rabbit hole here, but this makes you feel really good about where your leadership is and ultimately where, your messaging is. Dynastic teams that win for a long time, they do a lot of things really well. But I think one thing that, you notice first is how well they can, control the narrative of their program, the messaging of their program. And, Kirby Smart made it a point. Electronic media is the second room they go to here at Media Days after they go to their main room. Made it a point to bring it up there. They had a media scrum with just the local Athens, Georgia media members. And he made it a point there to early on address, hey, this is something that we're being very intentional about. This is something that is, implemented into our program right away. And like you said, JD, I mean, financially is where it counts, right? These are college athletes. These are, in Georgia's case especially, a lot of guys that are going to go on to play for money. Yeah. I don't think they care about working out, or running it a little bit more. That's what's made them great. That's what's allowed them to make a lot of money within this game. When you take away that money, I think that's what hurts. And Andy Staples made a great point here yesterday. That NIL money a lot of the times is what's allowing them to purchase these exotic cars and, get into racing and speeding and all of the other things that they've been caught up with here recently. But one, it's a beautiful thing for the game of football for the game of life, I guess, because of safety and, more responsibility and accountability. But, for Georgia, it shows how intentional they are about controlling that message and, getting some good PR, I think, throughout the week because of it.
Very aware move there by Kirby Smart. If it's the carrot, it can also be the stick. So I like that a lot. Like that a lot from Kirby Smart. Like that a lot for Georgia. And we appreciate y'all being tuned in, man. Trey Yannity on the ones and twos on the mic doing everything that you see here. We got one more live show, Radio Row. Trey and I will be back here tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. If you're listening on podcast, thank you. Again, leave a little review. Subscribe to that feed. Helps us help you. It always helps us help you whenever you subscribe on this platform. A lot of content for you as well on the social channels, right? So we are doing a lot of interviews. We interviewed Luther Burden, interviewed Jackson Dart, have a couple of other names lined up for today. Things are very volatile on Radio Row, so we will announce those as we get them locked in and get them recorded. But bottom line, you don't want to miss anything that we got going on right here on this channel, on this show, The Hard Count. All right, so for Trey Yannity on the mic, producing the show, for myself, JD Pickell, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. We are going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.